Welcome back to OpenLine. We have with us political analyst Pat Nolan talking all about politics, but we're being a little different because it's not so much. We will talk a little bit about presidential here in a moment, but there's some interesting state, local races. We go to the polls a week from tomorrow. School board race is big in our area here in Davidson County. A major part of that has been this issue of privatization, charters, and there's some outside money coming in. What are you seeing as far as the money in this school board race?
Well, I don't have the numbers, but we had a lot of money spent, particularly in District 9 years ago when Amy Frogey got elected, and she beat a candidate who had a lot more money raised and spent than she did. This time, I'm not sure we're seeing a whole lot of increase from that in terms of individual candidates. We are seeing more active outside groups. We talked a little bit earlier about the Stand for Children group. They're one of those that have been sending out they're a national pro-charter group. They've been involved in sending out some mailers against some of the incumbents. Now, you have to be careful in some of these super PAC groups. They can't really say vote for somebody, but they generally make it pretty clear they want you to vote against somebody, and by inference, in a lot of these cases, the only other person to vote for, if you're going to vote, is going to be the opponent. So both Amy Frogey's had some, Will Pinkston and Jill Spearing, that we talked about before. There's another group out in District 9 that's called 10 Refined. It's TN capital REFIN, and then ED on the end is also capitalized. They have sent out a mailer that I got in my home the other day that's from that basically says vote against Tom Duffel for the school board, and gives a number of reasons, most of which because a good bit of his money, they say, comes from people who are opponents of school board of public education, and
meaning he wants to privatize,
and the people who have donated money because they're in favor of privatizing public schools. So those are the kind of in races like this, in some of the state legislative races, mail becomes very important because, again, they don't have money for radio, they don't have money, or it doesn't make a lot of sense to do TV. So mail is a lot of ways they can effectively communicate with the people in their district. So you'll see this, and a lot of times the mail that's late tends to be the mail that gets to be the most controversial. And particularly when most times you want to get your mail out during early voting, maybe in some cases right before early voting. Some of these are starting to fall a little bit late, but we're beginning to see them come out, not only here, but in some of the state legislative races. And there have been a few mailers that have gotten to be controversial in a couple of the congressional races. A couple of the ones that Starrett has sent out over in that district against Desiree Lane.
They can be they're very targeted, and they can be pretty brutal sometimes.
Well, I mean, they're meant to try to stir people up and get them to go vote. Remember, they know who's voted because they get a list of everybody. Right. If you've already voted, the campaigns are told this person has already voted. And if you're doing canvassing and calling people you've identified your vote, you want to get them out. If they have already voted, whether they voted for you or not, you need to take them off your list to make phone calls because you don't want to be annoying people calling them after they've already voted. They can't help you one way or the other.
And these things are expensive. And it's very targeted. Like you said, you can take someone off the list if you find out they voted. But
but it takes a while to get them out. I mean, you don't get them out overnight.
Right.
So in some cases you'll get one of these, and I've gotten these at my home. I'm still getting some at my house. Yet I voted about a week ago. But sometimes it's hard to stop it that quick. You can stop phone calls. It's a little easier to take them off the list for phone than it is for these outside pieces.
So in our final, we have about 3 minutes. What do you see with this presidential race? Tonight, big speeches. What would you be looking for? I know you have some great news personally, but what are you going to be looking for if you have a chance with the birth of a granddaughter?
Well, I've not been able to watch much of the Democratic coverage this week because I've been at the hospital and doing things with one of my daughters had her first grandchild. I had my third grandchild, her first child this week. So that's been fun, but I haven't had a chance to watch as much of it. It's been interesting. A lot of people thought that the Republican convention last week was not necessarily a positive one for Donald Trump, but when the polls came out earlier this week, it looked like he got a bounce in a number of the polls. In fact, there was an LA Times poll that came out, I think, yesterday that showed him up 7 points nationally, and there's others that showed, I think CNN had a pretty good bounce for him. That's not completely unusual when you have things coming out of a convention. I'm sure Hillary Clinton will hope to have the same thing from the week of coverage that she's getting, and for the most part it's been a pretty good week. It didn't start out well. You had this WikiLeaks email situation that came up, and the last thing Hillary Clinton would need to have another scandal involved with her campaign or her party that says the word email in it. But the Democratic Party national chairman has resigned over that situation, it's not something that people didn't suspect. In fact, Bernie Sanders has been saying all along that the DNC was leaning towards the Hillary Clinton campaign anyway and trying to hurt his campaign. He has not come off the reservation. He still made a very strong speech for Hillary Clinton endorsing her, so did Elizabeth Warren. And that was a chance when both of them had gone off the reservation and could have been a real problem.
Oh, it would have been, yeah, absolutely.
So she managed to weather that. Her husband made a speech last night to see how that works. So we'll see. I mean, I think we'll see. I don't think we'll know for sure where this race stands until we get past all the conventions, get a chance for things to settle down if they ever do, and sort of see where the polls are.
Let's see what the bump is on the Democratic side. Okay, we'll take a break. Be back, wrap everything up. Be back right after this.